Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we will be reviewing Air Conditioning by the band Curved Air.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So I will not bore you with any jibber jabbers. Here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So coming out in the year of 1970, this is the debut album by the band Curved Air. Now this album is categorized as eclectic prog. Now that's a subgenre we don't really see a lot, so I'll explain it in just a few words. It basically means that it's a subgenre of progressive music that takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of different musical sources and puts them all in some sort of summary together in one album. Now at least to me, this album, being the proto-progish mess that it is, seems to take a lot of inspiration mainly from classical music and psychedelic rock. Now listening to this album, I was awestruck by the production quality of it. Now usually when I say this on this list, I mean that the production quality is very high and I will praise it very much, but in this instance I actually want to humiliate it. I have no idea what has went awfully wrong in the recording sessions and the mixing, but this album sounds pretty awful. It's unbalanced, it's mixed so horrendously. It honestly sounds like they're playing the music quite fine and I am myself listening to it through a concrete wall underwater. And maybe I'm exaggerating quite a bit, but honestly there are certain songs which it really sounds like it, and there are other songs which are recorded, fairly decently. So a few years back I've actually read a Stephen King novel called The Stand, and that's a very long book which you should all read, by the way, but there's a point which one of the characters, called Larry Underwood, talks about a story in his past where he remembers himself going to the zoo and being in the bat exhibit, and they all shit on the floor and it smells like shit over there, and when he walks in he really feels that smell and it's really hard for him, but then his mother tells him, you know what, you'll get used to it, and he does get used to it, and then at some point she tells him, hey, do you remember it smells like shit in here? And when he remembers that, it all suddenly comes back again and he wants to vomit. And the reason I'm telling you this is because this is this album in particular. You kind of get used to the recording quality being so bad, but whenever you kind of remind yourself that it is the way it is, it starts being so annoying and so unmistakably unavoidable. But anyway, leaving the production quality aside, I gave this album first listen and there are a couple of insights I came up with. So firstly, I think this album is filled with potential. I just don't think it's really used by the band in this particular recording. It is played so haphazardly, and if it were played a bit more concisely and with more artistic direction, I think it could have sounded a lot better. Because honestly, the way that Curved Air performed this album sounds like they're trying to do a very avant-garde, cover for the original album that doesn't even exist, because they are playing the original. And the eclectic combination of different musical genres, although being a cool concept, doesn't really work for me on here because it's really stark. You can have a song which goes in one direction and it flows in that direction pretty well, and then it suddenly just cuts to something completely different with no harmony and homogenization in the way that it does it, and I find that to be really annoying and very off-putting. I have no idea why this album comes up so many times in top favorite albums or most influential prog albums, because honestly, to me at least, it feels like a wreck of an album gone viral. And knowing that there are still two other Curved Air albums on this list, I'm really looking forward to them being a lot better than this one, because this one was definitely a disappointment. But despite me really shit-talking it, the fact that it does have the potential and the band are trying to do something completely different and unique on here does make this album a bit better than what it would have been if they were not giving any hex about making it any good. And you know, despite having a female lead vocalist and a violin on it, I couldn't really find any connection to it. Those two things are usually things that I really like in my albums, but on here they weren't utilized in a way that I could appreciate. An interesting track on here has to be Vivaldi. I think that it is kind of cool in the way that it incorporates rock music and classical music together. I love the use of the violin on it, and if it were recorded better, I think it would have been best, but there is this cacophonous section towards the end which really hurt my ears and made me want to burn my headphones, so that's why that song is not my favorite. And just as a funny thing, we also have a song at the end called Vivaldi with Canons, and that made me laugh so hard because it's technically exactly what it is advertising itself to be. It's the same song called Vivaldi, now this time there's cannons everywhere. Yeah, the uncharted territory of proto-prog is just so funny sometimes because they've tried so many things back in those days, and some things worked and some things didn't, but it came up with a lot of funny ideas which were definitely encapsulated in time. But if I had to choose a favorite, I think I went with the tamest and stalest of all the songs on here. I'd had to go with Rob 1. I think it's a lovely little song on here, it doesn't really take up a lot of time, and it's overall pretty good. The production quality, as I said, is pretty bad, but I think I could have suffered that one through best out of them all. But yeah, this is not a bad album. I'm making it sound to be like, but I was myself surprised to see that each and every song didn't get, you know, a mediocre or bad review. They got a good review or a fine review, and that's gonna show in the rating for sure. But firstly, let's talk about the cover. So when starting to make this series, I never really thought of the option of what I would do if I encountered an album without a cover. Nor did I actually think that I would encounter such an album that has no cover, but as we can see today, this album actually has no cover. Then you might be asking yourself, well Naomi, then what's this over here on the side next to you? Well, you see, this is actually not the cover. Originally, this album was released with having a transparent sheet and having the record just sit inside of it with this lovely artwork on the record itself. So you know, like the label section in the vinyl, like the tiny circle in the middle where you put your vinyl on the turntable, that's basically what you have. And honestly, I think that deciding to not have a cover itself and just having a very memorable design on the record itself is something very memorable that's really useful for a band and their debut. And who knows, maybe if they hadn't done it, they would just have gone under the radar, no one would pick them up, and we wouldn't see any more Curved Air albums. Now, I don't exactly know if I like this design of the record itself. I think it's pretty cool. I would have liked it if they actually used it to make some sort of animation and having each figure as one separate frame, but I myself do not know if that's even a possibility because I don't know the technical works behind it, so I'll just say this: it is a lovely idea for a design, but definitely not consisting for what a cover might be able to do. So when it comes to the rating of this album, as I said, this one is not bad, it's even not mediocre. This one actually received a surprising 6 out of 10. I think that personally I enjoy this album as much as possible out of what it is. Just the bad production quality overall and the way that they played is really hard, but as I said, I really felt the potential in the music, and that's why it's getting this pretty high rating. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to one of the albums which I was really waiting to listen to. Of course, it's Liquid Tension Experiment by Liquid Tension Experiment. I again want to thank my lovely supporters on Patreon, so thank you so much to Brian and Clay Walnham for being such lovely Patreons, and if any of you want to support this channel, you can always find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.